Tutorial, we're going to go over the Pearson Math Tools for data and graphs. You can access the Pearson Math Tools by going to the Tanana Middle School Library page, scrolling down to the Math section, and then pressing on Math Tools. Or you can also look up Pearson Math Tools in the Google search bar, and it will be the first link that pops up. So when you're on Pearson Math Tools, go to Data and Graphs, and we're going to work through how to use these tools. So the plot tool allows you to graph data on different types of plots. So it will help you understand how these plots work and then how to graph data on the plot. So for instance, let's do the circle graph first. And then we choose which one will be our labels, which will be column A, and then which one will be our data, column B. And then we can also select label percent, so it shows us the percent of each data point. So let's make a graph of what students ate for breakfast. And then for our categories, we're going to do each type of food. For instance, waffles, toast, bagels, eggs. And these are the categories that students said that they ate for breakfast. So how many students ate waffles? We'll put here 2 students, 3 ate toast, 1 ate a bagel, and 2 ate eggs. So now it shows us the percent of each of those categories. For instance, 25% of the class ate eggs, 25% ate waffles, 13% ate bagels, and 38% ate toast. Now let's try this on another graph. We'll do this on a bar graph. So once again, x-axis will be our column A, and the x-axis is the axis on the bottom. And then the y-axis is column B, and that's the axis that goes up and down. So the y-max is 10, meaning that it will go from 0, the minimum 0 down here, up to 10. And then we can change this to however many lines we want. For instance, if we want to make y step 2, then it will go 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Or we can keep it 1 and it will show every number up to 10. So this is what our data looks like, and we can edit this by going back here, pressing on it again, and then let's change it so it only goes up to 5. And now it looks a little better, and we can change the graph title again to what we want. We can label the x and the y axis by going up here and then typing in for the x-axis, and then for column B, we'll write number of students. So now we've made a bar graph representing what students ate for breakfast and how many students ate each of those types. Now if we want to do a horizontal bar graph, then we'll change this to 5 like we did in the last one, and it shows us our x-axis, what it is, and then our y-axis, so number of students versus food type, and it just changes it to a horizontal graph rather than the vertical one that we just made. If you do a double bar graph, then it will show you 2 different data sets. For instance, we have food type, the number of students, and then we could do another data thing like the number of teachers. So let's press OK, and now this column C will be number of teachers. So now how many teachers ate waffles, we'll put here, 1. And it compares each of these categories between students and teachers. So that's how we make a double bar graph. And then a line graph, you choose which one will be the x-axis and which one will be the y-axis. So for the data that we've been using, it's not really applicable because you don't put the food type, you just put 2 different numbers. So if we want to do that, we'll select which one is going to be our x-axis and which one's going to be our y-axis, press OK, and this compares the number of students to the numbers of teachers for each category. Let's see an example of another data set being plotted on this graph of month versus temperature. Now scatter plot, we'll do temperature versus month and a scatter plot. Change the range once again. Now we can see month versus temperature in scatter plot form. Now if we go to create plots, we select the graph type. For instance, let's do another scatter plot. And now you just drag and drop the points onto the graph where you want them. And then we can zoom in or out, put different points on various locations after we zoom out. And if you press up here, you can see the x and the y values that you placed on the graph. Okay, now if we go to line plot, we can add labels. For instance, let's say we're making a line plot on what people ate for breakfast again. So you go back to cursor, click on the point, and then drag how many people had each of these things. So that's how you can make a line plot. With a line graph, you just add how many labels you want, and then you drag the line where it needs to be. So those were just an example of some of the plots that you can make through the Create Plots. Now, graphing coordinates and equations, all you do is enter y and x and y values, and it will show you what those points look like on a graph. So let's say we do 3. So these are what all those points look like, and you can zoom in or out on that graph if you want to do bigger values. For instance, if we do this, let's do 60 by 20, and that's where the point will lie on the graph. So this is a good way to plot points and see how plotting x versus y works. Under plot points and write coordinates, we write the x and y values here, so for instance 5, 6, and then we have to plot it ourselves. So we go here, and then we see where 5 is on the graph. So 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over on the x-axis, and then 6 up the y-axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5, 6 is our point, and we plot that. And then once we're done plotting the point, or all the points that we put here, then we press check, and it tells you if you correctly or incorrectly plotted the values on the table. So this is a good way to practice plotting points and seeing if you know how to do it correctly. And that is how we use the Data and Graphs math tools in Pearson Math.